Greetings Midcoast Ukes, Jeff Weinberger coming at you here with a new tutorial. Like today to talk about diatonic chords and how to figure out songs by ear. How to use your bit of music theory knowledge and how to use your ear to tell you what the chords of a song are and how to learn chords much more easily and songs much more easily. We in Midcoast Ukes, we do an awful lot of songs that stay diatonic, that use only the chords of a given key. We do a lot of folk music, we do a lot of folk rock, and stuff like that does tend to stick really closely to the simplest chords of the key. So this is to kind of simplify that process for you and show you a little bit, give you a little bit of insight into how I go about doing this stuff. So here I have that song 4 Strong Winds that I was playing at the intro there. And it's simply the chords, the intro is C, D minor, and G. C, D minor, and G. Well, let's check out what that is. We're in the key of C, and we have C, that's the 1 chord. D minor, it's the 2 chord. G, it's the 5 chord. So those are the 3 really common chords in the key. Possibly F is slightly more common, and actually F comes later on in the song, but those are basically 3 very common chords in the key. So if you're familiar with the 7 diatonic chords for the key of C, you can just go by process of elimination. You can kind of go through them all until you find the right one. But another process you can do is sort of use deductive reasoning and say, well, it kind of sounds like it starts on the 1 chord. It starts on the root, the tonic, the home bass chord of C. Do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So that's the base of it all right there, the home bass chord. Do, C. And then it sounds like it moves, right? It goes... Well, it doesn't sound like it moves very far. It sounds like it's just moving a little bit. And indeed, it only goes from the 1 chord to the 2 chord. So that's kind of not a large distance to travel. And then it goes to this chord G, which sounds really like it wants to return to C. And whenever you hear that, whenever you hear a chord that has quite a bit of tension, it's a good chance that it's the 5 chord. So we're using like sort of process of elimination and deductive reasoning and kind of figuring out what the chords are. But none of these are wild, exotic chords outside of the key. These are all right in the key. If you know your 7 diatonic chords of your common ukulele keys, you can do songs like this. Let's check out another. Let's check out Buckets of Rain by Bob Dylan. Buckets of rain. G, it's in the key of G. It uses the 1 chord. And then we're going to the 4 chord, C. What could be simpler? A 1 chord and a 4 chord. In my ears, back to the 1 chord. Then it goes... And that's just a drop. That just descends from the 5 chord, down to the 4 chord, down to the 3 chord, down to the 2 chord, and down to the 1 chord. Dylan did that a lot in his music. He did a lot of those kind of drops. He does that in Like a Rolling Stone, too. So it just goes through the chords of the key in order from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1. It's that simple. It might not sound simple. You might hear it and say, oh, that's complicated. Boy, that's a lot of chords, but it happens to be easy chords. It's chords that just follow in a real logical pattern. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So Buckets of Rain is a good example of a song that you, with a tiny bit of music theory and a tiny bit of using your ear, you can figure it out. You don't have to search frantically for a song sheet somewhere out there on the internet and get all these bad, chords and wrong song sheets. There are errors out there, So it's good to sort of work it out yourself if you can. Let's look at a different Midcoast Ukes song. There are lots of them. I'm only going to do a small number of them today. Let's say, okay, I'll Fly Away. That's a good one. It's in the key of G once again. Some bright morning when this life is over, I'll fly away. So in the key of G, we have the 1 chord. Some bright morning when this life is over, but then it goes to a G7. that is not a diatonic chord. That's a secondary dominant that leads to a diatonic chord. We'll talk about secondary dominant some other day. But today, let's just assume, that we know that G7 is not in the key of G. But the chord it leads to, C, that certainly is in the key of G. It's the 4 chord. So predictable. 1 chords going to 4 chords. That's like the oldest thing in the world as far as music goes. As soon as they invented chords, they figured out that the 1 chord going to the 4 chord was a nice sound. And so many songs have that. If you have to make one guess, if you have only one guess as to what a chord progression is, try that first, 1 to 4. And chances are there's a good, like 50-50 chance that you're going to be right. So after that, we have a D7 chord. Well, geez, that's the 5 chord. And so it's a 1-4-5 chord progression. Doesn't have anything else in it other than that little secondary dominant. But even that's optional. You don't have to put in that G7 chord to make this song sound good. You could omit that and just play G, C, and D7, and it'll sound good. So 1-4-5, the most fundamental chord progression in all of music. 1-4-5. All right, what else we got? We'll do one more maybe. How about Hard Times Come Again No More? Diatonic harmony. It's in the key of C. Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears. Whoa, some sorrow with the poor. What are we talking about here? Key of C, the 1 chord. Going to the 4 chord. Back to the 1 chord. 4 chord real quick and back to the 1. And then eventually it turns around to go to the 5 chord, which leads to the 1-4-5. It's really churchy. This is a lot like a Methodist hymn, this Stephen Foster song from 1855. So it follows that kind of Methodist hymn formula of using the 1, 4, and 5 chords in that way. Dun, 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 dun. And there are just hundreds and hundreds of songs that do a very similar thing. They aren't necessarily Methodist hymns or Stephen Foster songs. They might be a Johnny Cash song, or they might be a Willie Nelson song, or they might be a Beatles song, or they might be a children's song, or it might be an old folk thing like Oh My Darling Clementine, or something like that. But the music we do in Midcoast Ukes, much of it, I would say, if I were to choose like 30 of our songs, at least 10 of those are going to follow this formula of only using a few chords and stick to just the diatonic chords of the key. So what's the message of this video for you? Well, diatonic chords, learn them. Learn the 7 chords in the key of C. Learn the 7 chords in the key of G, the key of D, the key of A, and the key of F. Those are the 5 common ukulele keys. Get that down and you're halfway there. That's like a big skill right there, big skill set. And then if you want to go beyond that, start to listen to chord progressions. Listen to a 1 chord going to a 4 chord. Learn to recognize that. Learn to, with your ear, figure out, oh, that's a 1 to 4 sound. Or otherwise known in music theory terms as a plagal cadence. You don't have to know what all that means, but you should know what a 1 to 4 chord progression sounds like, because so many songs use it. And then you should eventually get your ear tuned to a 5 chord, going back to the 1 chord. 5, 1, also known as the authentic cadence. 4 to 1, the plagal cadence, the amen cadence. Amen, like you hear at the end of a hymn. And then the authentic cadence, like you hear in so much classical music. Tension and resolution. Kind of uneasy feeling, unsettled, and then settled. All right, so there's so much more to it, but that's the basics. These are the very fundamentals of how are you going to figure out songs. What are you going to do when the internet is down and you cannot access song sheets, or you can't find your notebook, you misplaced your notebook full of song sheets. How are you going to do this? Well, ear, brain, reasoning, you'll get it. Alright, Midcoast Ukers, I hope you enjoyed that very brief and somewhat rushed tutorial on the subject. I'll go way more in depth and slow down and go into detail if you'd like. Just let me know. Leave a comment below or talk to me personally, and I'll do a different video that kind of goes through it a little more step by step. Alright, Midcoast Ukers, you take care. Bye-bye.